Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for MERI for the forum for the 5th year. I have participated. This is my 5th year participating in the forum, and every year it's more exciting than the previous one. Do we have translation? Does everybody have translation? Okay. Okay. So in the last session, there was a lot of talk about Iraq and what is happening in Iraq. In this session, we need to look at the bigger picture, and we need to look at the Middle East. And we would like to be discussing the trajectories and predictions for what is going to be happening, or what is going to happen with all that is going on in the Middle East right now. So as we all know, the history of the Middle East has long been marked by turmoil and transition. And while this region is no stranger to overlapping and intractable conflicts, recent dynamics have introduced new complexities and difficulties. Meanwhile, the Middle East as a whole remains vulnerable to the impacts of ongoing rivalries between major world powers. And it's being buffeted by competing regional and global powers and littered with fragile and failing states. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is fraught with militarization, mass population displacement, and communal fragmentation. It is time for a new order to emerge, one which might lead to greater stability and a more predictable future for Iraq's reconstruction and recovery, and what lies ahead in the region as a whole. But also we will be focusing on Syria, because we believe that the what happened recently in Syria definitely, I think, kind of goes into the mix and does affect things. So I would actually like to start with Sayed Kazim Sajidpour. I will give you a few minutes to tell us what your predictions are for the Middle East and what's going to happen.
Rahim, first of all, let me start in Kurdish. ام کاتتان باش خوشکو براینی برز لبابتی که لهورم پیم باشه و زور خوشحالم و ام حالتی که بو من زور ایجابی و تایبت بو لبابت نزدیک بون لکلتور زمان دین و دوستیاتی. So I'm very glad that I'm here. I thank MERI for making this possible for me to be here. I really appreciate Dr. Delovar's efforts. I told him, and I do believe, that he is a person of conscience. He is respected, not just in Iraq, all over the region. And I think we need people like him to bring people together. So I thank him in his institute and wish you all success. I hope my Kurdish was not bad, but I wanted to express my emotion that it is very different from other places that I go. I feel so happy. And you deduct this introduction from my time. Now, about the question, I think we have to have a bigger picture in the Middle East. How we can analyze the situation very quickly, and what are the remedies? The gist of all questions are circled around these two. I think I have ABC, actors, building, and context. Actors are too many today. Individuals have become actors. Youth are actors. But I think more importantly, states are actors. Regional states are actors. And global actors are very active in this region. So in this region, global actors are significantly active. And I think US policy, especially in this region, is a matter of concern. I think US has a confused policy. Look at the situation today in Iraq. On the one hand, they say we support the government. On the other hand, I think you see how they respond to the situations. I think US policy in this region, especially vis-a-vis Iran, is a matter of concern. There is a very blind obsession about Iran and the way they look at Iran, both by United States and some regional allies of United States. especially after American withdrawal from JCPOA, the region has become more insecure because of US policies. And nobody can ignore that. So the remedy is these actors come to a better understanding. Iran as an actor, I will touch later, very quickly. Now building. What we need in this region is not distraction. We have to build. Build what? Institutions, ideas, and conditions. And I think these are not easy, but look at this institute that Dr. Delover has established. It's an institution. Yes, it is in Erbil, but it is an Iraqi, it is a regional, and it is an asset, but it's a building. We need building in this region, not distraction. Now my C is context. I think the context psychologically should be changed. Now everybody is angry. And in anger, there is no way for rationality. I heard in the other panel that Iran is doing so and so. Why Iran should kill people? Iran is friend of everybody in Iraq, with no exception. Iranian security is linked with the security in the region. If the region is insecure, we are insecure. And we have been the first in fighting ISIS, and I don't want to go to details. So the solution or the prediction is, I think the United States is going to inject more instability, more regional rivalry, more selling arms, as President Trump said, beautiful arms, more chaotic situation, but we in the region should build bilateral relations, personal relations, a state-to-state relationship, build institution inside, value the institutions that we have, and try to change the context. And the context can be changed by us, not from outside. And I think the context should be de-emotionalized and de-escalated. And I think it is possible. I'm worried about my time, otherwise...
Yes.
That's good, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador Maxim Maximov, what is your prediction, especially now that we are seeing Russia as one of the major players in the region? What do you think that is going to happen in the near future, especially for Iraq and Syria?
Thank you very much, Tanya. I'm glad that our mediator's name is Russian, so that's a very nice thing. And I want to express my gratitude to the organizers of this conference and especially for Professor Dloyer. Well, this is my first time when I participate in this conference, so I'm always ready to share my thoughts and ideas on what is happening in the region. Though it's now the situation is very complicated in the region, and it's when we are speaking about whether it is predictable or not predictable, well, sometimes it's difficult to predict. And I can say that now a lot depends, like it was before, on how responsible the global and regional actors will approach to the issues of keeping peace and security in the Middle East. Well, the latest history for last 19 years shows us that the Middle East problems were addressed by highly controversial decisions based on not fully calculated assessments and plans. Well, starting from the American invasion in Iraq in 2003, many other conflicts occurred in Libya, and Syria, and Yemen, and in all of these cases, the initiators ignored the peaceful settlement, apparently due to their assumption that it is less effective than the use of force. As a result, we have now so many conflicts in the region. Well, when I started the diplomatic service in 1994, there was only one conflict, which we saw in the Middle East. It was the conflict between Palestine and Israel. But now we have more of them, and there is the big possibility that could be others in case if some regional or global actors will act in a responsible way. In Libya, the interference of some foreign players resulted in the split of the country into two parts, flourishing of the armed groups and militias. Is it exactly what those who initiated this campaign against Libya were starving to? I suppose not. Then Syria. So of course, well, if we're speaking about 2011, a rising of the outrage of popular rage over the government, a rising of opposition. Everything could be explained and understood, but what was wrong? And it was when somebody took the decision to send the foreign fighters to help Syrian opposition to fight against the regime. And what we received afterwards, after that, we received the situation with ISIL, when in the period of 2011-2014, a huge number of fighters were sent to Syria and Iraq from some region, from Northern Africa, from Asia, and so on. And these fighters, well, after some time, they understood that there is no need to fight against the Syrian government. It's better to occupy the vast territories in Syria and in Iraq to get access to the oil and to concentrate resources to establish the state, the Islamic State, and then to overthrow the governments in Syria and in Baghdad. That was the goal at the end. And now and then, all the Syrian government, the Iraqi government, faced the problem of combating ISIL. So it took a lot of resources. It took a lot of lives of people. So and whether it was planned when these operations and these activities were planned. So as I told you before, it's very important that the actors, global actors, behave responsibly towards the issues and problems in the region. Now, when the prospects of the situation development in the Gulf are discussing, there is a consensus that the conflict among the countries of this sub-region will lead to disastrous consequences for all of us, for all of the countries without no exception. So it is obvious that it will trigger the terrorism splash around the world and bring about a serious damage to economic and oil infrastructure, new flows of refugees. Furthermore, we don't know what the other religious ethnic ties or the military political balances will be demolished and what will be the consequences for the region.
Mr. Ambassador, yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think we would like to move a little bit towards the future, because what we would like to see or we would like to know is that I think we are beyond ISIL. Well, we are beyond that one-on-one fight against ISIL now, but I think that it's important to see what role the other regional powers, such as Russia, is playing in the region. And it's unfortunate that we don't have somebody from the United States, because it seems everybody's talking about the U.S. policy towards the Middle East for them to be able to answer to those.
Yeah, well, one of the objectives of Russian policy in the region is to find peaceful solution for the conflicts, present conflicts in the region. So we are deeply involved in the situation in Syria, and you know that in 2017 there was the Astana process was launched by the participation of Turkey, Iran, and Russia, and also afterwards the observers from Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon, and the United Nations they joined this process. So one of the achievements, and that was one of the goals of this process, was to create the Constitutional Committee, which was created maybe a few weeks ago, and on the 30th of October there was the first meeting in Geneva. This committee was supposed to draft the constitution and to elaborate the roadmap for the political process in Syria. So that's a very important thing, because it opens the way for change.
I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, I'm going to break my own rules. I just have to ask a follow-up question to this. But I mean, you talk about this committee that is established, and you have all the different actors that are supposedly, that do have to do with this war in Syria, but Syria itself, and even with the not having an inclusive process by which, for example, the Kurds in Syria have not been part of this process, or they have been excluded majorly. I mean, how would you be able to maintain stabilization or have the peace if you do not have an inclusive process?
Well, as far as I know, there are Kurdish representatives in this commission. Maybe few, but it could be maybe there will be some changes. But the problem is that there are some splits between the Kurds in Syria also. There are different parties, and so it's very important to arrange a dialogue between them. So those people who are in this commission must also express and represent the whole Kurds. The Kurds are the part of the population of Syria, and they must exercise all their rights. And so there shouldn't be any differences between them, because they have the same objectives. So that is very important. But this committee was established in order to speed up the political process, and all the components, all the political parties, and the government, the civil society, they are participating in this work. It's very important. I think it's a great achievement.
Thank you. Ambassador Hath, you're fairly new to Iraq, but you're not new to the region. You have served in many countries. I think in Iran you served in Iran, if I'm not mistaken.
I served in Iran.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as the EU ambassador, I think one of the things that we're seeing that there is a retraction in terms of U.S. foreign policy in the region. Is the EU ready to be able to fill that gap, to try and lead the stabilization or the peaceful process, the peaceful change in the Middle East?
Thank you very much, Tanya. Thank you, Dlawa, and the organizers of this seminar. As you say, this is the first time that I'm here. I'm especially grateful to be here. It's a great pleasure. First of all, I feel that I cannot be, as ambassador of the EU, on this podium here without saying how shocked and dismayed we are at the events that we have been witnessing in Baghdad over the last days. So I really want to say that we wish that this violence stops, that no one is hurt anymore, and we do wish that all Iraqis will very soon have an opportunity to come together, heal those wounds, and go forward together. We are here in Erbil. We are far removed, but many of us come from Baghdad. We've been talking about this morning, and I want to be very clear with this message right at the beginning. Very briefly on your question, I don't think that the EU aspires or can aspire to fill that gap. That's a huge task. We do not have this responsibility. The vast area between Iran covering Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon nowadays tends to be more and more, I would say, under the influence, because there are still countries in the 21st century that think in terms of influence spheres. This is not a thinking of the 19th century. It's still very much alive. So I think we're talking here about what I would term the Astana powers. It's Russia, it's Iran, it's to some extent Turkey, and to some extent Syria. Iran, for example, has what is generally termed an opportunistic foreign policy, which just means wherever there's an opportunity, these opportunities are used, and there have been ample opportunities over the last years U.S. withdrawal from the region is one of these opportunities. Russia is involved militarily in Syria. The situation, at least militarily, has turned to the advantage of Russia and the Syrian regime. So I think it is clear where the responsibility is. I'll stop here for a second for parentheses, because we're talking a lot about governments and states and regional states. We're not talking about people. And I'm saying this because it's important. If anywhere here in the region, let's say you put into one room 20 young Saudis between 20 and 35 men and women, and the same number of Iranian men and women, and you can add some Iraqis or some Kurds, and you just let them talk, you find out very quickly they have the same outlook on life. They have the same issues. They have the same aspirations. They're probably not all too fond of their governments. So a lot of the misery, a lot of the problems that we are talking about are actually well, they don't need to be there. They are the result. They're a result of politics. And this is why when we look at this big onion, which is the Middle East, I would like to start peeling the onion from the inside and not from the outside. And therefore, it's interesting what we're currently witnessing both in Lebanon and in Iraq. These protests, which are to a very, very large extent socio-economic, created by a very similar situation in both countries, a lack of jobs, services, and of course rampant corruption. I very much like the definition that Mr. Bashir Haddad gave about corruption this morning, because I think every country has its own way of corruption, and it's good that you understand it, because it will shape your approach towards it and towards the solution. So these protests are, of course, emblematic of trust and dissatisfaction, notably in governments. And who has the responsibility? And now I'm getting closer again to the answer to your question. It is, of course, governments and regional power brokers. So here the question is, what is the agenda beyond power and having control? I've been asking myself for many years now that especially Iran is becoming more powerful and is becoming more assertive. I would really like to know, from the perspective of people who are shaping Iranian foreign policy, what is their agenda once the situation settles a little bit? What does this region look like ideally, let's say from an Iranian perspective, in 5 years from now? I'd really like to know what are the social, the political, and the economic contours of that vision, insofar as such a vision exists. But while we talk about foreign policy schemes, we must not forget that power and control also entails responsibility, and that, of course, power and sovereignty are not privileges, but they are an obligation. And they cannot be maintained against the people who are ruled. So I would like to come with these very boring concepts that nevertheless have to be borne in mind, and that is build institutions, have real parties, not just confessional clubs, I say it a little bit loosely, work on the notion of citizenship, and work on the economy and bring people together. I think this is what the young people from this region expect, and more focus should be on that rather than on the big, great game, to repeat that at the beginning of the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mr. Ghalib, I will ask you to speak a little more broadly, but with a focus on Turkey, in terms of what the future of the region might look like, or what can happen. I think one of the things that we all are seeing is, and there is, Ambassador Huff actually asked one of the questions that I'll be asking Agha Sayed Sajidpour, but the issue is there is a pull and push between Turkey and Iran. And we would like to see, I mean, obviously it's affecting all these different countries in the region. It's affecting Iraq greatly. It's affecting Syria majorly, and the Gulf states, and so on. So tell us what your predictions are for the region.
Sure. Well, I will then try to combine it. I think one of the things that will be still continue 5 or 10 years from now, the process of regional restructuring will continue. So there is no change in this regard. And related to this is this process of transition, whether it's botched, whether it's stopped, but nevertheless, the cycle of transition, which is the uprising, government overthrow or not ability of government overthrow, or the post-revolution crisis, these will also continue. I think the region's relation with international powers is in the process of being restructured. The region is not entering a post-US era, but the region is not going to be as US-centric as well, too. In this regard, the region's relation with international powers will gain more and more a polycentric perspective. Therefore, we'll be talking about more and more the multiple actors when it comes to international powers involvement with the region. I think that another thing is the relative weight, the increase in the relative weight of the regional powers when it comes to defining the regional geopolitics or the political contour of the regional politics. So we will be seeing more and more the relative increase in the weight of the regional powers when it comes to the shaping the region. I think the balance of power between the state and non-state actors will be shifting, and to some extent it will favor state actors in the next stage, I think. But here, again, I should be putting some caution, because in the end, these also depend on to what extent this regional collapse will continue, which I think it will continue. So I don't think that we are in a post-crisis era in the region. The impact of one thing that we are not talking about, much about, the impact of climate and water scarcity will actually very much define the interstate relation in the region as well too. The militarization of the region, the Middle East is becoming one of the most militarized regions in the world, particularly when it comes to spending of the GDP, the ratio of military spending vis-a-vis the GDP is among the highest in the world. And when a region is militarized to that extent, that invites to any miscalculation and to any adventurism as well too. And unfortunately, this is one of the concerning aspects, the militarization of the region. I think that we will see more and more, rather than so-called the solid alliances, there will be more and more issue-based alliances. And these issue-based alliances sometimes will be defined not by common interest, but rather the common concern. The framework of these alliances or partnership will be defined more and more common concern. I mean, the Astana has been one of the framework that recently we talk about, but highly likely there will be more talking of this as well too. I think we will be experiencing more the crisis of ideological projects in the region. I mean, from the nationalist project to the Islamist project to Arab nationalism, Turkish nationalism, Persian nationalism, whatever. I think all of them, none of them is right now advancing a regional vision that can work actually. I think the crisis of all the ideological projects will be more and more felt. And this is where, it will be, we are going to see the crisis of these ideological projects also being reflected at the regional level as well too. And here, particularly on the question of Turkey, I think the crisis of Turkey will be, the crisis of the identity crisis of Turkey, the political crisis of Turkey, the geopolitical crisis of Turkey, how it is going to frame, how it's going to establish a future in which that it will deal with the legitimate Kurdish demands and also the Kurdish political activeness across the region as well too. The Kurdish issue cannot be just reduced to security or so-called the war on terror. In the end, the Kurdish political activeness is one of the new reality, and I think one of the crises of Turkey's regional policy will be, because in recent years the Turkish regional policy has been significantly downsized, and this is how to deal with the Kurdish political activeness. And related to this, I think another thing that we will be seeing is the decline in the so-called the politics of, yesterday we were talking about the sacred. That's not just in religious sense. The decline of the politics of sacred, I think, will be one of the defining feature of the regional political landscape going forward. And then related to this as well too, I think the search for a new regional contract or social contract will continue, because the region still does not have the regional political orders, domestic political orders in the regional countries still does not have a functioning, legitimate social contract, and this will still continue, and that will still generate much more tension between the authority and the people going forward. And until and unless we have some form of, legitimate domestic political order there is not going to be a regional order or any form of like regional security, working security arrangements, because in the end, we are talking about the governments that are inherently and terribly distrusting their own people. When you have the governments terribly distrusting their own people, they are not going to trust their neighbors to form any sustainable arrangements that can go for a long time. Because in the end, almost every government in the region has the crisis of legitimacy. And unless this is addressed, I don't think that we are going to enter the post-crisis era anytime in the region.
So let me ask you just a follow-up question. So is the security threat that Turkey is claiming legitimate? Yes or no?
Sorry?
Is the security threat that Turkey is claiming against, let's say, the northern Syria or the south of Turkey, is that a legitimate threat?
Well, there is a legitimate threat because of the fall of the peace process with the PKK. But at the same time, the whole issue is not security, and also there is legitimate Kurdish political activeness as well too.
But that's what exactly Turkey is just basically pigeonholing it into, is in terms of the security and nothing else. So what do you think that's actually, what are the people in Turkey saying about what's happening in northern Syria?
Well, I think the people in Turkey, I think you all know what's the answer in terms of people insecurity in Turkey thinks. Like the public support for the operation is quite high.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Aghay Sajidpour, I think that I would like to repose the question that Ambassador Huth actually asked, and that is, what is Iran doing in the region? In terms of, they are supporting many non-state actors. They are, they talk about the territorial integrity, and they talk about the sovereignty of nations. Yet they are supporting these different groups that are not necessarily that are threatening the sovereignty of these nations.
I think there are a lot of misperceptions about our country. It is very easy to blame, other actors, but I think when you go and really deconstruct what is constructed, you think it's very different. I think what Iran is looking for is very clear: security for itself and for the region, prosperity for itself and for the region. Iran is for the security of all its neighbors. When you talk about non-state actor, you have to keep in mind what do they mean by that. And if you go to cases, you see the cases are very different. And it is not one single pattern that you can talk. Now about the vision, I think the vision is very clear. The vision of Iran is based on what has happened in the past. And I think one conclusion which everybody may share is that extra-regional players have damaged this region significantly. Look what the United States has done to the region. I know it has different interpretation, but what it's doing right now? Can the United States bring security to this region? I doubt. Here, it's a very fundamental point I would like to raise in the line of what my colleagues were saying. I think we do need a regional self-confidence that we are able to establish security ourselves. I think this is lagging and this is missing in the region. There are some actors who just are thinking of buying security. Maybe Iran is the only country which is producing its own security 100% domestically, and it's even going beyond and is contributing to the peace and security in the region. Why? Because the Iranian Revolution gave this self-confidence to Iran that you can defend your country. There is no need for the United States to come. And I think that one of the reasons of serious animosity of the United States toward Iran is that Iran is depending on its own. And I think what's important, this sense to be understood that we people in the region, nothing is wrong with us. It's very important. Nothing is extensionally wrong with the region.
Nothing?
We are good people. Sorry, I finished. We are good people. We are not anything, let's say, different in a way. What has been imposed on us is this injection of insecurity by outsider. So the vision is clear, and Iran is for the security of the region. This is why our president in General Assembly talked about a proposal called HOPE, Hormuz Peace Endeavor. That means very, very basic principles of international law be as the base. And let's work collectively in the Persian Gulf toward a regional peace security. So what we need is a sense of collectivity. I think, I end. Blame game is the easiest way. Simplification is the easiest way. Reductionist approach is the easiest way, but it doesn't produce analysis. Iranian security is linked to the security of the region. The more security in the region is Iran's security and vice versa. We have to live together, and I think this is why we have to work collectively. So the vision is clear, that is to work together for a collective security environment, and I think it's possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, follow up.
No, actually, I'm going to leave that for later. But Ambassador Maxime, I think recently we saw the influx of refugees coming into the Kurdistan region. We have I think up until yesterday there was about 14,500 refugees have come in from Syria. Can we expect Russia to play a larger role in terms of supporting these refugees? I know Russia is trying to calm things down in Syria right now, but I think one of the things from an Iraqi perspective we would like to look at as well, because of this agreement that was reached, has still contributed to the influx of refugees into the country.
Well, yes. So actually, we have been dealing with this with the problem of refugees in Syria, and we encouraged. Well, actually, it was I think starting last year, we encouraged the refugees who were accommodated in the different countries of the region to go back to Syria. So because the numbers are very big, so it's more than 6 million refugees now, Syrian refugees outside the country. So since middle of 2014, we managed to make that almost 500,000 of refugees from different countries went back to their homes in the liberated from ISIL regions. So we're trying to make our best to help to restore the cities in Syria, and to provide the conditions for those refugees so they can come back. Well, it's not easy because a lot of work has been is in store. So we always say to the international community that it also should be participating in this process. The role of United Nations is very important also in the process of returning refugees. So, well, we hope that so in future we can address this challenge.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Hat. Obviously, when we're talking about stability and peace building in the region, one of the things that we have to talk about inclusion, and studies have shown, and it's been proven that when women are actually part of this peace building process, you know, the peace lasts longer. It has a better chance of the different parties kind of sticking to what they had agreed to. What is the EU doing to try and support women to make sure that they're part of building this peace process or bringing peace to the region and bringing stability.
Thank you. Just very quickly on refugees, because I have to highlight here that as a result of the crises in this multiple crises in this region, we are all affected. Iran is hosting a huge number of refugees, mainly from Afghanistan. We have a lot of refugees from the region here. It is one of those very, very negative effects. Nobody is happy. I think the hosting countries are not happy, and the refugees themselves are not happy, which should make us work even more to solve issues. Stability is really, and what we can do is really a core issue. I find it interesting when here in the region, we talk to people about stability, then immediately all heads are nodding and saying, yes, we want stability. Actually, there exist very different understandings of what the term actually means. I sometimes have the impression that here in the region, stability is very often subsumed under the phrasing of al-amn wal-istiqrar. So it has a strong security aspect. It's the kind of thing, fasten your seatbelt, nobody leaves the room, put the lid on, and everything is as is, and that is stability. That is a static model of stability, so to say. I've made the experience in my own country. I'm from Germany. My country nowadays is completely different from what it was many years ago from my childhood. We changed tremendously. We had lots of challenges. The introduction of the euro, German unification, lots of things, and we changed and we adapted. And I think we were only able to remain stable because there was the opportunity, or there was the willingness and the capacity to constantly change and adapt on all levels. On the political level as well as on the social level. And the key for that is exactly what you were referring to. It's a constant dialogue about what is the common good, where is the country heading, what are the issues that concern us all at any given moment, because they change all the time. And you can only have this dialogue about the common good in any country, and I fully subscribe to what Mr. Sajadpour said. We are all the same good people with our good and sometimes not so bad sides. Human ambitions and aspirations are the same ones. So let's have this dialogue about the common good, and it has to be inclusive. And how to achieve that? It's through participation. So media, elections, etc., and yes, of course, bring women in all the time, especially I think in societies and political systems which tend to be male-dominated. The experience is very often when you have only men in the room, they're very much divided along party lines. When you have women in the room, they talk and they cross the party lines, and they have a better way of communicating with each other. So in all the relevant programs that we have, I mean, working with civil society, etc., of course, including a woman, promoting the presence of women is absolute essential. And I mean, that is being met with a lot of appreciation in local societies. But of course, the change of thinking has to come from within. So just to stress again, stability in the sense of dynamic stability. Nothing in the 21st century can stay as it is, not even in the Middle East. We're in the digital age, and everything is changing constantly, and sometimes it's painful, and we realize that ourselves. Have a discussion, inclusive participation, and lots of women. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Ghalib, I know last night you said you don't like to use the word stability when talking about the Middle East. And you also talked about the new order and what the new order should be like, the new security order. I'd like to talk a little bit about why you think that we're using the word stability, or what the alternative would be if we're trying to, just as Ambassador Hatt said, we need, the concept is quite different from the word that we're actually using.
Well, I think, let's start with problematizing the word stability. I mean, the word stability in the context of Middle East usually means supporting the authoritarian regimes at the expense of the people. And this has been the experience of a long time, and this has provided neither stability nor, good to anyone. If anything, this has only deepened the crisis, deepened the grievance of the people. And then when it exploded, many people searched their heads, why on earth this is exploded? So in this regard, right now, the word stability, stagnation, particularly when it's used at the expense of the transformation, is an ill-conceived terminology. Middle East will not have stability unless and until it has transformation. Anyone thinks that there can be stability by keeping, let's say, Assad in power or Sisi in power or whatever in power, I think are terribly wrong. There will not be stability because in the end, can you have stability at the expense of your own people? And to what extent, particularly given the fact now there is a new political psychology that did not exist before, because the foundation of Middle Eastern authoritarianism was also very much premised on certain political psychology before. And this political psychology has dramatically changed. And you see this in Baghdad. You will see in other places. You see in Algeria, in Sudan, in the wave of the protests, one after another in many parts of the Middle East as well too. So no stability in the Middle East without transformation. And what has been presented in many places is actually the idea of stagnation, the idea of the authoritarian suppression has been, sold to the people as stability. So this is not the case. The word order is also quite ambitious. So I don't think that the word order, a Middle East security order, will come into being anytime soon as well too. In the end, we have to, if anything, the best we can talk about is different security mechanism framework, and this will not be one. There will not be an overarching security mechanism framework that will be serving the Middle East across the board, but rather there might be different security mechanism framework that can be utilized in different parts of the region indifferently. But even this security mechanism framework cannot work if it is premised on the idea of containing some power or excluding some power. I think one of the major trouble of GCC is usually seen as one of the successful example of the regional security cooperation framework, whatever, is it was premised on the idea of excluding Iran and actually to some extent Iraq. But can you have a security framework in the Gulf when you exclude the two largest Gulf countries from the security framework? So exactly. So in this regard, any idea of having some form of security framework that can momentarily work, but it will not work for a long time. So in this regard, any security framework needs to have, be rethink, and the idea of inclusivity should be at the base of. And once again, I will reiterate what I have just said, previously. The order, whatever discussion that we have on the security or regional level security order, will not be achieved unless and until we have a domestic political order. The link between the regional level and domestic level is much more intimate than we think, because so-called order sometimes, if most of the leaders in the Middle East, their power to represent people is so limited, and whatever arrangements that they will have with the other countries, that will be very much contingent upon the next wave of the protest. So therefore, the link between the regional or whatever, regional order or domestic order is much more intimate than we think. And the last point, we should, sometimes we use the word Middle East quite carelessly. We should once again to problematize the idea of the Middle East, the regions of the Middle East. To what extent actually the Middle East qualified to be called as a region in the first place, and particularly when even we use the word MENA, the Middle East, North Africa. What I say, the dynamics of some part of the Middle East and the dynamics of the MENA, actually you see a geopolitical decoupling between them. The dynamics of the both parts is significantly changing. So in this regard, we have to be much more less ambitious when it comes to usage of the word stability or order, but at the same time we should not lose the nexus of the domestic and the regional level. This will define what is going to come out in the Middle East. And no one in the Middle East has any, as I said, no country in the Middle East right now is offering anything that can work.
Okay, so is Turkey now more European or more Middle Eastern?
Well,
Have they decided?
I think Turkey has been more Turkey always. I mean, more European, more Middle Eastern. What does it mean actually? So in this regard, I don't think that these debates in itself will be. But what will be different, Turkey will be more and more, even if there is a government change in Turkey, Turkey will be much more enmeshed and involved in the Middle East than it used to be, because for a very simple reason, once you get involved, it creates pet dependency. And then pet dependency is not like easy to break. And the crisis between Turkey and the West is actually much more structural than we think. So, I mean, I don't want to, now the issue is Middle East, but I don't think that the crisis between Turkey and the West will be solved 10 years from now. Like it predated Erdogan, it will outlast Erdogan. So when it comes to Turkish-Western relation, post-Erdogan will not be anti-Erdogan geopolitically, because the crisis between Turkey and the West is a status crisis, is structural crisis, is a crisis of framework, and that will go on for quite some time to come.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually going to open the floor for questions, if it's okay. I'm going to take 2 or 3 questions at a time. Please, if you have questions, do direct them to whoever you would like it to answer the question, and try and be brief so we can have as many people speak as possible. I'm actually going to start from here.
Vladimir van Wilgenburg. I have a question to the Russian ambassador. Why Russia never talks about the Turkish occupation of lands in Syria? They always talk about US is illegally in Syria, but they never condemn Turkish actions, while the Syrian government is clearly talking out, speaking against this Turkish occupation in northern Syria. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question in the back.
شكرا جزيلا. أنا رحمن غريب، رئيس مركز ميترو للحريات الصحفية في إقليم كردستان. والسؤال إلى سيد سجادي. تتحدث.
Oh, you don't have translation? Can we have a mic, please?
I can understand Arabic, but I cannot rely. I can understand Arabic, but I cannot rely on my Arabic.
Okay. But can we please get a translation set?
كردية زانية؟
لا كردي نازانه بلام وتي عربي تيجا اگر
خوي ابي عربي بزانن يعني.
لا for Sayyid Kazım.
شكرا جزيلا. رحمن غريب من مركز ميترو للحريات الصحفية في إقليم كردستان العراق. تحدثتم عن التدخلات ووقفتم عند التدخل الأمريكي وزعزعة أمن المنطقة من قبل يعني التدخل أو السياسة الأمريكية في المنطقة، ولم تتحدثوا عن التدخل الإيراني، السياسة الخارجية لإيران في قضية تدخلاتها لبنان، سوريا والعراق. هل أن التدخل الإيراني في المنطقة هو شرعي والتدخلات الأخرى هي غير شرعية؟ هل ينتظر الحكومة الإيرانية بأن يطرد دبلوماسيوها ويحرق سفاراتها كي تخرج من المنطقة وتعيد سياستها في المنطقة؟ شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you. That gentleman. No. Bubarak Said. Well, we'll get to everybody. Promise.
I have a question for Mr. Kazım. You started by right now in the Middle East, individuals are becoming actors.
Yes.
So, and you talked about the institution, but Iran is among the few countries in the Middle East that build this relation based on individuals, you know, a few individuals in the countries. So, and right now, like people, individual in this country, they are against these individuals. So we are in a dilemma. And this kind of situation, to what extent it is sustainable? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just in front of you, Kak Said. Just right there, and then I'll give you a chance to answer this. And then we'll take another
I'll
set.
start with the commended Mr. Dalai, Galip Dalai, for bringing about the matter of transformation. Now, the Middle East, and for that, for that matter, the international relations, misses the component of transformation. Conflict transformation. It's all about conflict management and in rare cases, conflict resolution. Now, the conflict transformation in your presentation or the last comment is that you've talked about, I commend that. But what kind of transformation? Right now, what we're seeing, Turkey is transforming or exporting its conflict beyond its borders, and so is Iran. And so is Saudi Arabia and the other regional players. So the idea is that are we as Middle Easterns ready to change or shift our discourse from a negative transformation, negative conflict management, to a positive conflict management? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to give our panelists a chance to answer the questions, and then we'll take some more questions from the audience. I'll get to you. Yes, please.
I think is it working? Yeah.
Yeah.
On the intervention of Iran, comparing it with international actors in United States intervention, as I said in my introduction, case by case, it's very different. Look at the case of Iraq. First of all, we don't intervene in domestic affairs of anybody, but it was the request of Iraqi authorities, including what happened in this part of Iraq. And I have to explain. When ISIS was close to Erbil, I think about less than 30 kilometers, President Barzani called United States for help. They said we have to consider to look at it. I think he also called other regional players. No answer. He called General Soleimani. How long did it take for Iran to be here to answer to the request of our Kurdish friends here? 4 hours. Is it intervention? Is it the same intervention that the United States is doing in Syria, occupying a part of Syria which is by any international law illegal? And then the United States president comes and says we are interested in the oily part of Syria. We protect it. I think the easiest and then the most dangerous analysis is easy analysis and making analogies based on no facts. So here it is the request, and I think this is very important example of what has happened, and you see it that comparing is very different, and each case is different. Syria. There was a demonstration there. I don't want to go to the details of it. Personally, I think every citizen everywhere has a right to register her or his view, especially when it goes to the relationship between a state and individual. But we know that the Syrian case, maybe you can say the legitimate concerns of the people were hijacked by strategic competitions. And they came for regime change in Syria. And regime change from outside became the concept of military intervention, intelligence intervention, and so on and so forth. I think this is very different when Syrian government asked our help and consultancy. They asked the Russian leader, and I think you cannot compare this with American intervention in Syria. You cannot compare it with the other. Actually, it's not intervention at all. So be careful. We need each other. We have to live together. And I think accusation is the simplest way, but be more analytical. Work on facts. and don't just go what I call it fast food analysis. Fast food analysis is very dangerous, especially when you come to the policy level. Now the second question, individuals. When I said individuals as actors, I really meant it. Today, every individual, including those who are in this room, are really actors. And they act through social media, they have voice. No state can ignore individuals. And I think individuals have become empowered globally, and I think it is a global phenomenon, and it is very important, and it has impact in decision. So individuals should be taken seriously. But the other point is that when you manage the daily affairs of life, you do it through institutions. A state everywhere is responsible for security. Actually, the existential factor which explains the existence of a state is providing security. Security is provided by the state, but a state is represented by people who run them. Now, here in this part of Iraq, you have certain individuals, but they are in charge of institutions. So Iran is working with the individuals who are in charge of different parts of the state. It is not just an individual is there and a state is there. I think this is very important, that Iran is working with the state of Iraq. And the state of Iraq is represented by individuals who are in charge. I think analytical clarity is the most important issue in response to your question.
Thank you, sir. Kagalib, I think there was a question that was posed to you. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Please.
Concerning the Turkish operation in the northeast of Syria and American withdrawal from this region. So first of all, we always say that at the end of the day, when the situation is stabilized in Syria, the Syrian government should be controlling all the territories of Syria. This is the first point. And of course, as a neighboring country, Turkey has some concerns over its security. To address these concerns and to avoid any kind of the continuation of military operation, Russia and Turkey agreed to sign the memorandum, which was signed on the 22nd of October between the presidents of two countries in Sochi. In those memorandum, it defined the modalities of the cooperation between Russia, Turkey, and Syria in northeast of Syria, in context of the security zone which was created by Turkey. So, Turkey is a neighbor of Syria, and its concerns in the security field could be understood. But the United States is several thousand kilometers from Syria, and what concerns do they have? And at the end of the day, all the military forces, foreign military forces, should be withdrawn from Syria. Because in the future there will no need in these forces, and if the Syrian government says that there will no more need in the help and assistance of foreign countries, so they must leave. That's our position. We said about many times. And and I think that withdrawal of the United States forces from Syria, from that region of Syria, it was the right decision. But then we have another step with deployment of some forces in the oil region of this country, and which we consider that is again another violation of the international law, because these these resources should belong to the Syrian people and nobody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, on the question, I mean, particularly the regional countries externalizing their own problems rather than being part of that. I completely agree. I don't think that, as I said like in my speech, none of the regional powers right now offering a vision for the future. So, I mean, look at the policy of each regional countries. Which one tell us that, you know, a vision that is very future-oriented and a vision that factor people in? So unfortunately, right now, most of the regional powers are prisoners of yesterday's struggles and the prisoners of their own insecurities. Some of them real, very real. Some of them imagined. Some of them is like, you know, the reflection of the political identity or geopolitical crisis that they internally experience. So in this regard, I don't think that any of the policy that we are seeing is advancing a future-oriented perspective to people that can be like, you know, people can really associate with. Secondly, the whole talk in the region has been, even to the most political question, the answer has been the security framework. So when the only thing that you offer is more security to the question that are essentially political, you are not going to get, you know, you are not going to get any sustainable relation as well too. The Sunni crisis is a political. The Shia demands for a good governance is political. The Kurdish political activeness in the region is political as well too. So all these things are essentially political issue. They do have security components. You know, the fight on ISIS is a security component. But in the end, you know, all these issues are effectively, essentially are political. And unless and until regional countries can come up with the visions, political visions, that aim to address the political aspect of the thing that has been completely framed as a security issues, I don't think that we will break the cycle of these, you know, this violence, counter-violence, the cycle of like, you know, or the language of security or war on terror. The Middle East is a region that is awash with the language of war on terror. Everyone has their own war on terror. But in the end, once again, most of this, yes, there is security, yes, there is terrorism, yes, there is all of them, but essentially, effectively, those are like political issues, most of them. And unless, like, you know, the regional countries can come up, advance a political vision that can deal some of those more legitimate political questions, we're not going to break this cycle.
Thank you. I'm actually going to take another round of questions. We'll start from here, and then we'll go back there, and then we'll come here. Okay. Who has the mic? Somebody has... Okay.
Still it doesn't work.
ڕۆژ باش زۆر سپاس بۆ جەنابەت من بە کوردی قسە دەکەم پرسیارەکانم ئاراستەی هەردوو جەنابی سەفیری ئەوروپا و رووسیا
یەک دقت لەسەر خۆتە سەماع شتەکانیان دابنێن بێ زەحمەت.
هەروەها پرسیارێکیش بۆ ئەو بەڕێزەی لە ئەستەمبۆلەوە هاتووە سەبارەت بە ڕۆژاوا من پرسیار لە رووسیا و لە ئەوروپا دەکەم باس لە ئاشتی و ئارامی دەکرێت لە ناوچەیە کە ئێستا کە هەمومان دەبینین بە چ شێوەیەک جوانترین ناوچەی ئارام لە باکووری ڕۆژهەڵاتی سووریا ئارامترین شوێن بوو ئێستا کە بە بیانووی دابینکردنی ناوچەیەکی ئارام بۆ جێڕانەوەی پەنابەران خەڵکی ناوچەکە زیاتر لە چارەگە ملیۆنێک ئاوارە کراون و هەڕەشە و لە بەردەم لە ناوچووندانە بەڵام رووسیا و ئەوروپا تا ئێستا هەنگاوێکیان نەناوە بۆی ناوچەیەکی ئارامی ڕاستەقینە چونکە تورکیا لایەنێکە لە لایەنەکانی شەڕ لەو ناوچەیە بۆیە ناتوانێت ڕۆڵی ئەوە ببینێ ئایا ئەوروپا و رووسیا چۆن ئەوە قبوڵ دەکەن دوو بەنسبەت رووسیا نووسینەوەی دەستوری نوێی سووریا کوردەکانی لێ بێبەش کراوە ئەوانەی کە لەسەر ئەرز دژی داعش جەنگاون ناوچەیەکی ئارام نمونەیەکی باشی ئیدارەی زیاتیان پێشکەش کردووە باشە بۆ ئەوروپا بۆ رووسیا ئەمە قبوڵ دەکەن لەژێر گوشارەکانی دەوڵەتێکی هەرێمی کە دەیەوێت نیازی فراوانخوازی و فۆبیایەکی بەرامبەر بە نەتەوەیەکی دیاریکراو هەیە بۆیە من داواکارم بە هەردوو بەڕێز هەردوو کۆنسل باڵوێز کە ڕوونکردنەوەی پێویستمان لەسەر ئەو سیاسەتە بدەنێ و سەبارەت بە تورکیا بەتەکید ئێمە لەگەڵ ئاشتین نەتەوەی کورد لە هەر پارچەیەک بی داوای ئاشتی دەکا و داوای مافی خۆی بە ئاشتی دەکا سەبارەت بە تورکیا هەمومان دەزانین زیاتر لە 50 ساڵە لە زیاتی پەنابردن بۆ دانان بە واقعی بوونی کورد لە تورکیا پەنا بۆ لەناوبردن و ئینکاریکردنی ئەو مافەکراوە هەرچەندە لە سەرەتای بەڕێز ئەردۆگان کە هاتە سەر حکوم هەندێکان گاوندرا بەڵام پاشە کشەی خەتەر ینی مەترسیدار ڕوویدا ئایا تورکیا و گەلانی تورکیا من لە جەنابەت بیستم کە دەڵێ هەموو خەڵکی تورکیا لە وەڵامی پرسیارەکەی بەڕێستان گوتی هەموو خەڵکی تورکیا لەگەڵ ئەوەیە سەپۆرتی ئەو عملیاتە عسکەریە دەکات من پێم سەیرە ینی میلەتێکە بێ لەگەڵ شەڕدا بێ من پێم وانی ئەو بۆچوونە ڕەنگە زۆر دقیق بێ یعنی میلەتی تورکیش پێویستی بە ئاشتی و پێکەوە ژیان هەیە لەگەڵ کورد ئایا تاکەی حکوومەتەکانی تورکیا کە دێنە سەر حکوم لە جیاتی ئەوەی بە دوای چارەسەر و ئاشتی و ئارامی هەم لەگەڵ کورد لە ناوخۆ هەم لەگەڵ دەر و جیرانەکانیدا بگەڕێ پەنا بۆ شەڕ دەبن کوام هەڕەشە لەسەر سنووری سووریا بەرەو تورکیا کراوە کوام فیشەک لەوێ تەقیوە بەرەو سنوورەکانی تورکیا بۆیە من پێم وایە بیانوەکانی تورکیا لە جێ خۆی دانیا و تورکیا ئەگەر دەیەوێ ئیستقرار و زمانی ئەمن و ئیستقراری خۆی بکە پێویستە دان بە مافیبوونی کووردا بنێ پێویستە مامەڵەیەکی تەندروست و دیفاکتۆ لەگەڵ ئەو ئیدارە زاتیەی لە باکووری ڕۆژهەڵاتی سووریا هەیە زۆر سپاس بۆیەوە
زۆر سپاس پرسیارێک دوو پرسیارە لێرە ئەمجا دوای دەچنە پشتەوە فەرقینی هەردووکتان لێک ببوورە مامۆستا ئەو دوو بەڕێزەی پێشەوە یەکەم جار فەرموو
My name is Dr. Sero Dezei, head of Kurdistan Contractors Union. First, I thank the organizer of MERI, especially Dr. Dilaur. And I thank all the speakers. Tanya, thank you, and all the speakers. My question is to Mr. Martin, both ambassadors, Mr. Martin and Mr. Maxim. Such known for all that the area, Middle East generally and Iraq especially, is very important for Europe and for Russia, economically, politically. So my question is, what's your future vision for what now done in Iraq, the situation in Baghdad, and have you any decision for this situation? And thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman next.
اسمي وديع الحنظل رئيس رابطة المصارف الخاصة العراقية. عندي ملاحظة وبعدين السؤال. الملاحظة الأولى ميري علمتنا دائما أنه الجلسات تكون فريندلي أكثر، ما كنا نتعلم أنه دائما الجمهور يأخذون حصتهم بالأسئلة أكثر. فدا أشوف الجلستين قصدي المؤتمرين الأخيرة مدى يأخذون الجمهور حصتهم أكثر بالسؤال. هاي ملاحظة فقط الميري وإحنا نشكرهم طبعا كل فعالياتهم. من استعرض المتحدثين أمامي كلوحة بانورامية وكأني لأنه بنكي فاستعرض الملاءة المالية كل الدول اليوم تركيا روسيا إيران قدر الوضع الاقتصادي للدولتين بما يتعرضون عليه من حصار ومن عملة في عدم ثبات العملة في تركيا ومقدر الوضع لروسيا أنه تدخلها إلى حد ما واصل. لكن السؤال هو للسيد مارتن الاتحاد الأوروبي اللي هو احنا بالوقت اللي نشكر منظمات المجتمع المدني أشار على الوضع الاقتصادي وأشار على موضوع تمكين المرأة. هو نحتاج من دورنا كمنظمات مجتمع مدني بما جاي تعمل GIZ من دورات تدريبية ولكنها محدودة. من الأفضل إلى ألمانيا والاتحاد الأوروبي لكي لا يحدثون لهم نازحين بعدد أكبر أن يعملون دورات تدريبية بشكل أكبر لتأهيل دور الشباب لتثبيتهم في دولهم ودور تمكين للمرأة بشكل أكبر بدل ما أن ينزحون يحملوهم بشكل أعلى من الكلف المالية جاي يتحملوها في دولهم. فإحنا بصراحة نقول يفضل أن تكون مساهمتكم بشكل أكبر مما يحدث وهذا مو مسؤوليتكم، هذا واقع حال. إحنا كنا نتعرض إلى ظروف قاهرة خارج عن إرادتنا. الحرب هو ظرف قاهر، فيضان هو حرب قاهر، الزلزال هو حرب قاهر ظرف قاهر. إحنا بدنا نتعرف إلى ظرف قاهر لكي تحطون هذا الشيء. أنا أعتقد تساهم المنظمات بشكل أكبر وشكرا.
شكرا. فرمو.
من محمد نزيفي قادريم لحزب ديمقراطي كردستاني إيرانوا پانێلی یەکەم ئەگەر باسەکانی تەحلیل بکەی پانێلێکی واقعبینانە بوو بە نسبەتی دەرد و ئازارەکانی کۆمەڵانی خەڵکەوە. پانێلی دووهەم بەتایبەت پێشکەشکاری یەکەم و دووهەم زۆرتر پاساوی سیاسەتێک بوو کە لە دنیای ئەم ڕۆژە مەحکومە. ئەو سیاسەتەی کە ئێستا گەلانی ڕۆژهەڵاتی ناوەڕاست پێیوە ئەناڵێنن، سیاسەتی نەکولیکردن لە هۆویەتی نەتەوەکانە، سیاسەتی تەداخلە لە شؤونی وڵاتان و ناوچەکان، سیاسەتی بەرسیکردنی کۆمەڵانی خەڵکە. بۆیە ئەگەر واقعبینانە تەحلیلی ئەو وەزع بکەین و باس و بابەتی ئەوە بکەین چۆن شەڕەکان کۆتایی پێبێت و چۆن ئاشتی ببینەوە، دەبێت پێش لە هەموو شتێکەوە ئەو وڵاتانەی کە لە عەقڵیەتی دیکتاتۆریا ئەژین شناسی نەتەوەکە دان پیا بنێن و مەجال بدەن خەڵک لە چارە نووسی خۆیان ئێرادەی خۆی بنوێنێ و هەوڵ بدەن هەلی کار بۆ بێکاری و پرینسیپ و پرۆسەی خزمەتگوزاری بۆ کۆمەڵانی خەڵک دابین بکەن. بۆیە من لەگەڵ دەستخۆشی لە میری بۆ پێکەنانی کۆڕەکەی ئەو تێبینی و مەلاحەزاتانم بوو پێم خۆش و پێشکەشتان بکەم. سپاسەنە.
زۆر سپاس مامۆستا. پرسیارێک لێرە؟ لە ناوەڕ لێرە بەڵ بەسەر چاو.
شكرا. لدي سؤالان. السؤال الأول موجه للسيد نائب وزير الخارجية الإيراني. كما تعلمون أن العلاقات الإيرانية العراقية بالذات بعد 2003 ربما توصف بأنها علاقات جيدة، هناك مجالات تعاون واسعة اقتصاديا وسياسيا واجتماعيا وحتى عسكريا. ونعلم على أقل تقدير على المستوى الأكاديمي في العلاقات الدولية أن في الغالب يكون الدور الأكبر لوزارة الخارجية في تنظيم هذه العلاقات. ألا يشكل تدخل أحيانا المرشد الأعلى في خطابه في الأحداث الداخلية التي تحدث في العراق، ألا يشكل إحراجا لعمل وزارة الخارجية باعتبارها الجهة المعنية في تنظيم هذه العلاقات والتمثيل الخارجي؟ ونحن نعلم أن المرشد لديه صفة رسمية داخلية، ولكن أنا أتحدث على مستوى العلاقات الخارجية، ألا يشكل ذلك إحراجا في بناء العلاقات؟ وإن كان كذلك لماذا لا يصدر توضيح؟ السؤال الثاني للسيد سفير الروسي، ربط كثيرا بين ما حدث في سوريا إلى حد ما ربما وما يحدث ضمن العراق. هل هناك مخاوف روسية أو نظرة روسية أن ما يحدث الآن بالعراق هو يمتلك ذات البدايات التي حدثت في سوريا؟ وهل هناك رغبة للتعامل بذات المنهجية التي تم التعامل بها مع ما حدث في سوريا؟ شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا. عفوا دكتور هم أمجد وايب ديب ولا جنابيش فرمو.
زۆر سپاس تانیا خان. من سێ پرسیارم هەیە زۆر بە کورتی. ئەوە یەکەمیان بۆ ئیتحادی ئەوروپی. شتێکەیە پێی دەوترێ ئینهیماک الشعوب، ماندووکردنی گەلان، هیلاکردن، ماندووکردن، گەڕان بە دوای یان داواکردنی ماف، داواکردنی پێداویستەکانی ژیانیان. ینی پێتان وانییە ئەوەی کە وەکو تێڕوانینی ئەوروپا بۆ خۆڕەڵاتی ناوەڕاست، گەلانی خۆڕەڵاتی ناوەڕاست بەردەوام ماندوو دەکرێن، بەردەوام لە ئەزمەیەکەوە بۆ ئەزمەیەکی تر دەبرێن و ئەوەش دەکرێتە موبەریرێک بۆ تەدەخولی ناوچەکە. ئەوەی بۆ سەفیری ڕووسی، ئایا پێتان وانییە کە کۆمەڵێک هاوکێشی ناهاوسەنگ هەیە لە ناوچەکە لە نێوان خۆتان و وڵاتانی تری زلهێز؟ ئەو ناوچەی خۆڕەڵاتی ناوەڕاست و بە تایبەتی عێراق و سووریا و ئەوەش کراوەتە تاقیگەیەک لابێک بۆ هاوسەنگکردنی ئەو هاوکێشە ناهاوسەنگانە کە کێشەی خۆتان و وڵاتانی ترن لەو ناوچەیە یەکلا دەکرێنەوە. پرسیاری ترم بۆ نێردەی ئەوەی عەفو بۆ سەی بەڕێسەجادی، ئەو کێشانەی ئێستا لە ناوچەکان کێشەکان بە ئایدۆلۆژی کراون لە تێرمی سیاسیەوە بردراوە بۆ تێرمی ئاینی، مەزهەبی، دینی. ئایا ئەو کێشەیە کێشەگەلێک کە لە سیاسەتەوە ببرێتە ئاینی، مەزهەبی، دینی، چارەسەرکردنی ئەوەنە ئاسانە بێ بڕای ئێوە؟ سپاس.
Zor spas. I have to take two more questions from two ladies. I'm partial to that. We'll start with here and then we'll go to Bakshan Khan, actually.
دەستخۆشی لە پێشکەشکەرانی ئەم پانێڵە و لە باس و بابەتەکان شتی گرنگیان ورژاند و ئێمەش بەڕاستی لە گرنگی ئەم بابەتانە و ئەو بەشداربووانەی کە ئێستاکە لە بەشداری پانێڵەکان پێم خۆشە شتێک ئاماژە پێ بکەم ئەویش باسی کووردە هەر کاتێک کورد فرسەتێکی دێتە پێش کە کورد مافی خۆیەتی حەقی خۆیەتی سربەخۆیی وەرگرێ هەر کاتێ فرسەتێک دێتە پێش و بەدیتن و بە ڕوئیای کورد ئەم فرسەتێکی باشە فرسەتێکی گونجاوە فرسەتێکی سازاوە بۆ ئەوەی کوردیش وەکو هەر گەلێک وەکو هەر میلەتێک وەکو هەر نەتەوەیەکی حەقیقی لەسەر وجود و بوون و خاوەن زمان و خۆی و ئاڵای خۆی بێ دەبینی دژایەتی کردنەکان لە باربردنی فرسەتەکان ئەوانەی لێرە دانیشتون من پێم وایە دەستیان هەیە بۆیە یان کاریگەریان هەیە ئەگەر بە دیوێکی دیژ بێ بۆچی ئەم فرسەتانە هەمیشە دەبێت لە بار بردرێن بۆچی ئەم فرسەتانە هەمیشە ئایا کام زەمینەیە ناسازە ئایا کام هۆکارە هێشتان کورد مافی ئەوەی نییە حەقی ئەوەی نییە ئەوەی دەستکەوێ کە دەبێ بێت
زۆر سپاس. Last question.
زۆر سپاس. بەڕاستی من پرسیارێکم هەیە لە جەنابی ئەو برادەرەی لە ئەستەموڵەوە هاتووە یعنی پرسیارە لای خۆم خەڵکی منتیقەیەک دەرئەکەی لە ماڵەکەی بۆ ئەوەی خەڵکی منتیقەیەکی کە بێنی لە ماڵەکەی داینی و نایی بنەی منتیقەی ئامینە ینی ئارام ئەوە پرسیارە لای من بەڕاستی یعنی ئەوە تا ئەبینین ئاوارەی ئەو منتیقەیە حتا گەیشتوونەتە ئێرە پرسیارێکی ترم بەڕاستی من لەوەش پرسیارە لەلام ئەبوو بەکر بەغدادی لە منتیقەیەک یعنی گیرایان بەڵێ لە ئەدلب کە وابزانم دەسەڵاتی تەواوی تورکیای لێیە ئەو منتیقەیە ئەگەر غەڵەت نەبم پرسیارێکی ترم بۆ ئاغای سەجادی يعني من تي أقم طبعا برادران كباسي أكيد أمني خويان وإلى آخره بلام تصوره كان أو تعليقاتاني كلبالاترين بيجي قراري إيرانوا برامبر بمظاهرة شيكاني عراق أكري خزمتي أو أكاكا وضعك هي منو آرام بيه آخر برسيارم تانيا خان جناب وروجانة بس كس تناولی نەکرد مەسەلەی بەشداری ژن لە دامەزراندنی ئاشتی لە ناوچەکە ڕازین ئەمە بۆ هەموو ئەو زاتانەیە ڕازین لەو دەرفەتەی کە ئێستا ژن هەیەی لە ناوچەکە بۆ دامەزرانی ئاشتی و ئەو دەورەی کە ئەو دەرفەتەی ئێستا هەیەی یارمەتی دەرە بۆ ئەوەی ژن لە ئایندە لەو بەدیلەی کەیەت ڕۆڵی خۆی ببینێ و زۆر سپاس.
زۆر سپاس بۆ تۆش. So, because of time, and I know they keep on waving at me, so what I would like to do is give you maybe each about 3 minutes to answer the questions and also include your closing remarks in there as well. So,
I start?
Yes, you start.
I think with the questions asked to me, I have to say in Iran there is a consensus. There is no difference between officials on issues related to the region, including Iraq, and the consensus is that we want a secure region, including a secure Iraq, a prosperous Iraq, a friendly Iraq, and I think this is very important to keep in mind. And I think the issue of consensus that we have to have a very good relationship with all Iraqis is the matter of central importance for all political elites of Iran as well as the people of Iran. And I have to say there is no people-to-people relationship in the region as there is the people-to-people relationship between Iran and Iraq today. I may end that we need first of all, actors' responsibility. When I said individuals or actors, individuals are also responsible. States are responsible, external regions are responsible, and we have to be cognizant of responsibilities. Second, I think we have to build, not to destroy. And building capacities is very important. The capacities that we have to preserve. And finally, I think what we need is a collectivity. This was my ABC, collectivity. And I think here, in answering to the questions that I received, there is a collective understanding that the situation in the region should be de-escalated and should be managed to the interest and benefit of all the people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador Maxima.
I'll try to answer briefly some of the questions. First of all, I have already told this, that we want that the rights of Syrian Kurds are preserved and guaranteed. That is why we encouraged for already several years to Damascus and the representatives of political parties from Syrian Kurdistan to establish dialogue and to discuss all the issues through the negotiations. And of course, we understand and we support that the Kurds must, the Syrian Kurds are the significant part of the Syria, and all their rights must be guaranteed. What rights and what will be the form of their coexistence in the Syrian state? So it is the subject of the negotiations with the Syrian government. So I think there is no other way. And we always encourage the authorities in Damascus. We met very often with the representative of the Syrian Kurds in Moscow, and discuss and inform them about our approaches to this issue. About the participation of Kurds in the Constitutional Committee, I was already said that there are several representatives. Now the United Nations are supervising the work of this committee. So there are three groups, as maybe all of you know. One from the government, another from the civil society, and the third one from the opposition. So in case, if there is the necessity to add some participants to this group, so it is up to those who are working now in this group to decide and on the basis of consensus. So that's it. About participation and role of women, I can say that, in comparison with Russia, in Iraq, in general, role is very, very, I should say, it's important, and we can see, even in the parliament, there are more women than in Russian parliament. That's for sure. So, I think it's very important to support women and their role in the society.
Thank you. Thank you. Ambassador Hutt.
Thank you. On the last question, on the role of women in peacebuilding and mediation, the answer is a resounding yes. There exist, in fact, very detailed concepts for mediation and peacebuilding, notably in the UN framework, and I think even Turkey and I think Finland have an important role there. The problem is, and I've worked in this environment for many years, it's preached, the concepts are developed, but it is only very rarely practiced. I think we need more practitioners of mediation and peacebuilding, but it is already well established from the examples that are known that the participation of women is absolutely crucial. So that's an established fact. The other questions directed to me, I think they were all about Iraq. Very quickly, if I understood the first question correctly, it was about the European position regarding the Turkish invasion. the Turkish military action. If that was a question, I can only say very clearly the European Union did not accept it. It condemned it very, very loudly right from the beginning. And my impression was even that our condemnation was a bit louder than the one coming from here. But that may have to do with the fact that here we are a bit closer to events than we are in Brussels. On the bigger EU contribution to Iraq, these questions very often come in a rather vague form, and then they're immediately connected in a sense with saying, "Oh, you will have all the refugees." That's a dangerous nexus. I think Iraq probably has the capacity, if it has the willingness, to really work on those solutions itself. I know you come from the banking sector. We have in fact been approached on several levels, interestingly, both from KRI as well as from Baghdad, to help support building a real banking sector. So that's certainly a point where we can involve ourselves. Otherwise, I think all the recipes are already there. This country should be booming. It is coming out of a war and terrorist crisis. It has a lot of money basically available, so there should be huge labor-intensive infrastructure projects. And you have to ask the question why that isn't happening, unfortunately. To end on a positive note, at least until a week ago, I would have said, for once in Iraq, people are not discussing issues of war and terrorism and security, but they're discussing the economy. That in itself is a sign of a process and maybe a little bit of progress. But of course, the challenges are enormous there. And finally, I think there is also a school in Iraq that says, let's turn the disadvantage, or what is perceived as a disadvantage, that we are between Iran on the one side and Saudi Arabia on the other side, let's turn this into an advantage and build on our good relations with both sides and in fact with all our neighbors, i.e. protect and immunize Iraq from regional threats, but also leading to more coordination or cooperation amongst the neighboring states of Iraq. And that is a project and idea that the European Union is very happy and ready to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Khan.
Thank you. Well, I can group all of the questions basically under the framework of like how Turkey is going to deal with the Kurdish question. Because in the end, what we're experiencing is effectively the result and then the outcome of a Kurdish question that is effectively internal, but has a very large regional dimension as well too. I mean, a few years ago in Turkey, the thought was that the peace process, and I think this was still the most important and then the most right approach to the Kurdish question in the history of the Republic. And I think at some stage, once again, that Turkey will go back to, or will have to go to deal with this issue politically. But however, when the peace process collapsed, I mean, each side has different narrative, more or less it was clear what to follow, because what to follow was what followed before. And effectively, the peace process was meant to actually to finish an era that was bloody, that was terrible, with humanitarian, political, human rights, democratic, economic, all cost. And in the end, the Kurdish question in the Turkey and in the region, but is not a security issue, it's effectively a political issue, can only be dealt with sustainably in a political manner. And that, will require the recognition of Kurdish political activeness, both within Turkey, but in the region as well, too.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panelists. I think this was quite a dynamic panel, and the crowd or the audience was very forthcoming with their questions. Please join me in thanking them. Thank you very much.